Welcome as we are here outside of Island Grove in Abington. I believe it is called the Wilson Place. We had State Representative Alyson Sullivan Almeida.
Not legally yet, but yeah.
Representative, good to see you. It's been a while.
It's great to see you, Kevin. I know we were just talking about that.
Changing of the seasons, that we would do something for the snow flies.
Yeah, I feel like it's change of the seasons right now in this moment. Sun was just out. It was a little warm now. It's windy and chilly and sweater weather.
Now, you a pumpkin spice girl, or you like,
Well, since becoming a diabetic, I'm very much of anything with very little to no sugar, but I love the pumpkin scent. So I've already purchased my fall candles and starting to turn over the summer stuff for in the house and putting out the fall stuff. I love fall.
so you just had a big day. Uh,
Yep.
got married. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so my husband and I got married on August 6th up in Mount Washington Hotel in New Hampshire. It was a weekend away with our families, and it was beautiful. It was warm, very, very warm. I think we had a heat wave at that point. 98 degrees out, getting married right on the rooftop of the hotel. As I'm about to walk down the aisle with my mother and father, the sun comes out behind the clouds, and I think we were all melting away at some point. But it was beautiful. I cannot complain. It was one of the happiest days of my life. Him and I, we were able to enjoy our families, but also enjoy each other in the moment.
What's it like from your point of view, planning such a big day? Because a lot of
Mm.
times they say it's, the women enjoy kind of all this, who's going to be coming and
Yep.
what is it going to look like. What was it like?
So it was actually it was awesome. I mean, I got engaged a couple days after my birthday, so almost 6 months to the day we got married. A lot of people told me I was crazy for doing that. Right? It's the end of legislative session, campaign year, and then getting married. So they asked if I liked myself because I was very busy between all three things. Right? But I love being busy, so it was easy for me. I love having that pressure of getting things done. But my husband and I, we really enjoyed it. We did a lot of sign makings for the wedding and doing things ourselves. I bought a cricket. I love my cricket. If you don't have a cricket, you should get one. And I'm not promoting cricket. I don't get any money for this, but it was just nice. It was nice to kind of go over those details with him and really go through our list of people. I mean, we wish we could have invited everybody.
Right.
We had about a 240 guest list wedding that attended. So yeah, so there were people that we had to, put on the B list, but we never were able to really get to the B list because so many people were excited about the wedding and they had the ability to really come because of their open schedules or what have you.
I know why, but I want to hear from you. Why New Hampshire? What was it about New Hampshire? Why was that the setting?
So I'm probably gonna tear up because you know, family is very important to me.
Hmm.
Very important to my husband. And as a kid, I'd go up to Mount Washington, up to Bretton Woods. I learned how to ski on that mountain.
Oh.
I taught my niece and nephew how to ski on that mountain. And hopefully, I'm going to teach my other niece and nephew how to ski when they become old enough. But my grandfather and my grandmother, that was a place that we'd always go to every year. We'd do a family vacation. My aunt and uncle would come with their kids. And it was just, I mean, you talk about a house full of laughter. It was, I don't know if we slept, those weekends that we would go away. And the memories that I have of my grandfather and grandmother right on the back of that hotel, sitting there enjoying just the moment with us. That was a huge reason why I decided to choose Mount Washington as the place where I wanted to get married. We lost my grandfather in January of 2021, and he adored my husband, and my husband adored him. So, and they share the same name, and they have other little facts in common, which is crazy to think, but I believe that was a place that would allow him to be there if he physically couldn't be there because he was no longer with us.
Fantastic.
And I believe that because I believe in butterflies as a sign of people that have passed, right? I don't know why, but it's our thing in our family. And as I was walking down the aisle and standing there at the altar, per se, right, there was a bunch of butterflies around me. And so I hope my photographer was able to capture that in the moment. But just seeing them there, it was like my grandmother, grandfather, my other grandparents, and everyone else that I lost. we're enjoying that moment with us.
Wow, that's fantastic. You had alluded to just a few moments ago as far as how busy it was to close the legislative session, or at least wrapping things up, or getting the budget done. Other things taking place, sports betting now going to
Yep.
be a thing in the
Yep.
Commonwealth. Kind of give us a synopsis as how things kind of closed out and how the budget process wrapped up for you this time around.
Oh wow, it was I mean it was stressful. I think we had one of the longest sessions in the history of the legislature. We went for I believe 22 and a half hours, almost 23 hours, maybe even more. And it was hard because of, my wedding being so close to the end of session. I was very much trying to avoid getting sick in any way, shape, or form. And so I was voting remote at that point. And it's difficult when you vote remote just because you're not physically there. But being that long into the process of the end of session, there's a lot of pieces of legislation that we were hoping to get through before the end of session. There's still hope that they will go through as long as they're able to go through in an informal setting. But we'll see. I mean, Governor Baker just signed into law to end child marriage just yesterday. I was up at the State House to celebrate that. So we're taking a step forward in protecting victims across the Commonwealth from abuse. Don't get me wrong, though, we still have a lot that needs to be done.
Yeah, and you mentioned the governor. I know that he had filed a very special piece of legislation, the dangerousness bill.
Yes.
And that's one of those things that still is lingering. Hopefully, at some point in time during informal sessions, something will happen, whether it's an entire piece of legislation or important parts of it.
Right.
Give us your thoughts on the hope that this is something that will, at least some of the key parts, will make it onto the governor's desk for signature.
Yeah, it is troubling. It's troubling to hear when you hear colleagues of mine from the other side of the aisle saying how powerful and how impactful victims' stories are when they're heard right from the victim's mouth. The governor and lieutenant governor did a tour throughout the Commonwealth, and it wasn't for any other reason but to bring power to these stories, power to these women, and power to these men and children to say their voice matters and their lives do matter. I mean, that they're being heard, right? So, unfortunately, it wasn't as powerful as we thought it was going to be in the eyes of some of my colleagues because to them, it wasn't important to pass this legislation. And it's unfortunate. There's a lot of great pieces of this legislation that I was hopeful that the other side of the aisle would work on and getting passed. For instance, allowing for the expansion of what crimes go under dangerousness and what fall under dangerousness. And I think people are very confused when they hear the word dangerousness hearings, right? It's a hearing that takes place right at the beginning, so right during arraignment, which is moments after a crime has happened. And it's a very restricted list of who can be held on a dangerousness hearing. Dangerousness hearing, you don't get bail, you're held for a certain amount of days depending on what the crime is. And unfortunately, child predators are not considered to be listed as a dangerousness person to be able to have a dangerousness hearing. I mean, that's awful. You hear stories of what happened up in the North Shore with the I believe it was the hockey coach, or he was a coach of one of the teams, and he sexually assaulted multiple boys, and their lives are forever changed. Their family lives are forever changed, and it's not fair. We should be protecting, especially our most vulnerable, our children in our community.
Great.
Most recently, I don't know if you heard about the murder-suicide down in, I believe it was Wareham. And there was two, I don't know young, but two children in the home. The husband killed his wife and then killed himself. I mean, this is a huge issue, and we should not be turning a blind eye to it.
Yeah, you and I actually had a conversation on radio not too long ago, and one of the things I felt was powerful, what you had said, and that is in regards to holding somebody who might, when it comes to dangerousness, and the length of time. And I think the one thing, and I'm paraphrasing here, was that if you're holding somebody, if you're only holding them for so long, that's not going to make them less angrier and less dangerous. If anything, that that giving them time to maybe
Plan.
plan.
A lot.
Yeah.
And as a survivor of a very serious domestic violence relationship, that is one of the biggest fears you have in the back of your mind. It took me years and years to really feel safe in my own home, safe in my own town, safe at my job. For several years, I mean, almost up until the day I decided to run for office, I was very much hidden. My home address was expunged from any type of record. My working within the state was expunged from any type of public record. It was very difficult if my abuser was going to try to find me. The day I decided to run for office, though, was the day that I really felt like I got my life back because I was no longer going to live in fear. But for victims who are currently living through these type of situations, the fear of that person getting out after 90 days or 180 days is real because a lot of those people are promising to take one's life. And to think that your abuser is going to get out simply because of a loophole in the law and have all this time to be angry, to plot on how you're going to do it, it's a very scary time. 81 days after that is probably the most dangerous that victim and survivor will be in. 181 days, 182 days, that's when we really need to concentrate on those people.
We should also touch upon the fact that sports betting is something. Give me your thoughts as to that being something that's very real, taking place here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Not sure as to your role in it, but knowing that it's something that is going to be taking place, whether it's kind of something that's additional to the gaming bill that was passed a few years ago, and that's just more revenue for the Commonwealth.
Well, that's it. You nailed the what is it?
Hit the nail on the
Hit
head.
the nail on the head right there, right? More revenue for the Commonwealth. You saw in I believe it was 2020, it might have been even 2019, where we banned the flavored tobacco and really pushed for the expansion on that. We lost a lot of revenue from that, and whether you support tobacco use or not, it definitely took a hard hit on our revenue system. So I believe this is going to bring great revenue to the Commonwealth. I have to admit I'm not an expert in the field. I'm not really a betting kind of person. I know there are all these kind of things out there when it comes to sports, but I do believe that this will be a huge positive for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
As you're wrapping up the last few months of your legislative term, up for re-election. Kind of,
Yes.
if you could put into perspective what the last year and a half have been like for you serving the 7th Plymouth District, and moving forward, what you would like for voters to remember when they go to the polls on November 8th.
So that's a huge question, right? And trying to put in very simple terms of what it has meant to me and how I feel about that. I've actually had several conversations with some of my colleagues, most recently, of course, because of the election, but it's been an honor, an honor to serve the people here in the Commonwealth, but also the 7th Plymouth District, so Abington, Whitman, Bridgewater. And wow, can I say, like, I just, even though a pandemic hit, never knew when I ran in 2018 that a pandemic would hit, a year and a half later and the whole world would shut down. But the stories that I hear, even just on election day, just the other day, where people would come up to you and say, you know what, you really helped us in a time of need. I had one gentleman, as I was putting signs out, came up to me and he asked for a lawn sign. And I, of course, said, here's a lawn sign. And he goes, you don't know it, but you helped me. You helped me tremendously. And not on one occasion, but on several occasions. I've never met him face to face. It was always through email. And it was just that moment where you're like, wow, you actually are making an impactful, impact here on people you represent. It's not just all about what goes on at the State House. That's about, I would say, 20-25% of what we do, right? What we do at the State House, because you know how often we're either there or not there, depending on how you want to look at it. But a lot of our work is here, making sure that we're accessible to our constituents, we're transparent, we're reliable. I love being out in the community. I do want to say, I believe I have a lot more that needs to be done. I've said it, time and time again. I want to do more around protecting victims of violent crimes, survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault. I want to make sure that we're expanding the resources around our mental health, especially when it comes to students in their school systems, seeing what resources are going to be a positive impact, where we can improve. And also just housing. We look at the market right now and making sure that we have the ability to grow here in the district. So.
And what's interesting is just knowing that I feel like candidates and don't get me wrong, I like the democratic process, but you're a veteran now. You're getting ready hopefully you're going to get elected to your third term here. And folks, they run and say, hey, you know what, I'm going to make all kinds of changes. But I think when you get in office, you realize that you know what, you have to, it isn't
It's a buildup.
It's a buildup, and you can play partisan politics on
Mm-hmm.
TV, but then when you have to get in the room, you're trying to get things accomplished for your district.
Mm-hmm.
You have to learn to work with others. What has it been like to work with others? Maybe they're not necessarily a member of your political party,
Mm-hmm.
but yet you value that what they have to say, and you're willing to work with folks across the aisle.
Well, as you know, the Republicans are the super minority up at the State
Yes.
House. And so in order to get things done, you have to work with across the, work with your colleagues across the aisle. I have a great relationship with a lot of our colleagues on the Democratic side. I also am very close to some of my colleagues that are here on the South Shore. We've been in your, radio station. Kathleen Atra and I were
Yes, the
just
peanut
there.
butter peanut
Peanut
butter
butter
and
and
jelly
jelly,
crew.
yes,
Yes,
yes. And the thing is we work very well together. We have a great relationship and we bounce ideas off of each other. What makes sense, what doesn't make sense, what the perception is of the Democratic side versus the Republican side. And really trying to find that middle ground because at the end of the day, when you serve in office, you don't just serve the Republicans, you don't just serve the Democrats, you serve the people that you represent. And that is very real. And I believe that most of the politicians, I could say, and I don't like using that word all the time, but
sure.
especially here on the South Shore, it's about people, it's not about politics. Anyone that calls our office in need, I don't ask them what political party they're affiliated with.
Mm.
I don't even care if they voted for me or didn't vote for me or voted or not. It's about helping them in the time of need. Most people do not call your state rep unless you're at the, and that bottom of the barrel, right? It's not your first call, it's usually your last call. So I believe that work can get done, even though Washington doesn't show like it can, but here in Massachusetts it definitely can.
Yeah, and if you could just remind folks that the hard work that was put in by your office during COVID,
Hmm.
and what fielding calls and helping folks
Right.
who are at wit's end, and you were the last call. Your
Hmm.
office, your aides were the last call that they would make, saying, "I need help
Right.
with certain areas."
Yeah, I mean, we got several, probably hundreds of calls a day, especially in the height of the pandemic. And
Hmm.
Curtis, my former legislative aide, really did a fantastic job around that. And Catherine, my new legislative aide, who's actually in the district, she lives in East Bridgewater. She's actually up at the State House right now. And it was a lot, it was getting those phone calls, getting the emails, and we probably received, I would say, roughly over 100 emails, maybe over 30 calls a day in the height of the pandemic. And luckily that slowed down. But then, of course, after fact was the stolen identity that we were getting and those calls and people frantic over the fact that they got a call from unemployment or a letter from unemployment saying they were trying to claim unemployment, which they never were, finding out that their identity was being stolen. It actually happened to my husband during the pandemic. Yeah, he got a call, and we were able to take care of it. Unemployment was really good at responding, but it happened to so many people, and that wasn't on the forefronts of the news or anything because we were in the middle of a pandemic.
What do you feel are going to be the paramount issues that legislators like yourself, whether they're whether they're a state representative or state senate, what do you feel are going to be the paramount issues that they're going to be questioned about before the big election in November? Is there anything that comes to mind?
I guess you might be segueing into some of the stuff we've already voted on. Is that what you're
No, just
regarding?
no, just a general.
So I know that, we took vote around abortions here in Massachusetts regarding the decision from the Supreme Court. And I've had several conversations with several people across the district.
Hmm.
And I have been outspoken about being pro-life, personally pro-life. And I do believe that we need to have protections around the unborn child. They filed legislation back in 2020 in the budget that was deemed named the Roe Act, right? That would expand abortions from 24 weeks to late term abortions. But the definition of being able to receive a late term abortion, it needs to be a fatal fetal anomaly. And in the most recent agenda, in the most recent bill, it changed that to severe fetal anomaly. And I was very concerned with what the definition of severe was.
Mm.
Because at the end of the day, what might be severe to you is a loving child to me. And I believe we should have some restrictions, especially when you're dealing with late term abortions. At some point, that child is going to feel pain. That child is a living being. And if it can survive outside the womb, then we should be thinking about that as well.
No, I was just in general, it's just a general
Yeah.
question.
No, I mean,
It could be anything from, I mean, we're going to have ballot questions,
yes. I think we have several ballot questions.
several ballot
Yeah.
questions. What about fireworks? There's one about
Yeah.
happy hour,
Yep.
illegal
Driver's
immigrants,
license for
driver's
illegal immigrants.
licenses, yeah,
Yep.
stuff like that.
Hmm.
It's, that are going to be questions
Most
about.
definitely. I mean, I believe it might be up to either 10 or 12 ballot questions from what I'm hearing. So I hope people are prepared for several pages of,
Time.
ballots. But, as regards to the, driver's license for illegal immigrants, I voted against that when it came to the House. And, for several reasons. If you look at our R&B, and they're all humans, right? So we've seen throughout the whole entire pandemic a short staff everywhere. Everywhere you go, there's help wanted signs.
Mm-hmm.
It's no different for state employees as well.
Correct.
We saw several people early retirements. They just didn't want to deal with the headache of the pandemic. So now we're trying to fill those spots. They're playing catch up. And with everything that has happened, and I'm not bashing the R&B whatsoever, but they've been in the news several times over the last several years.
Yep.
For things that are human error, but it's made a huge difference on the whole entire Commonwealth. It has a big impact.
Right.
So driver's license for illegal immigrants, that's people here without status, or came in here and extended their stay past their status, their visa. We're talking about the issues around voting. We're talking about the issues around actual identity. I mean, have you gotten a license recently?
It's been a couple of years.
I mean, you're short of giving blood at this point to
Yeah.
prove who you are.
Yeah, if you're going to, especially if you're going to get the federal, the real
Yep.
ID one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the concern is, we're leaving it up to an R&B that's already short-staffed, overworked, to really, be able to sit here and say, okay, we're not giving this license, we're giving that license. Now we're going to have two separate licenses. And then voting. You go into the R&B now and you register to vote when you sign up for a license or drive a permit.
Yep.
So there's concerns around that. And with voter integrity, I mean, we pushed for identifications when it comes to voting, and they said that that was something that we shouldn't be doing because there are people that can't afford an ID. Well, let's give them a no cost or low cost ID just simply for voting.
So your particular district is going to be a little bit of a change.
Yes.
A little bit of a geographic
High
change.
Precinct 1 in East Bridgewater.
Yes, I know some people on my staff who are very happy about
Yes, my in-laws are too.
that. Have you had a chance to engage some of the new people in the new part of the district that
yes.
will become part of 2023?
Yep. So when we were out collecting signatures, we actually door knocked in East Bridgewater and Precinct 1, introduced myself to Precinct 1 in some areas. And I do know a lot of people in Precinct 1, so I got to meet them even in the last 3 years, because I had the mindset that it's not just 2, 3, and 4 I represent. Technically, yes, those are the ones that would be able to vote for me, but I treat East Bridgewater as a whole. So I never turned anyone away if they were not technically in my district, if they did reach out to the office. But I know there's a lot of people that are very excited. I'm very excited. I'm sad to lose Precinct 4. I have family in Precinct 4 as well. They're sad to see me go, but
you'll still treat that as the
exactly.
same as...
And you know what? Jerry Cassidy picked up East Bridgewater, and he is a great rep, and I know he'll do well in sense of representing East Bridgewater.
Let's close things out. Anything that I have, it's almost like a blank check. You fill in.
Oh, gosh.
You fill in what
$1 million.
Well,
How about that?
how about that?
Right?
Publicist Clearinghouse.
That's nuts.
This is yours. No.
Yes.
If there's something I haven't asked you, but you want to at least take a moment while we got the cameras rolling to just touch upon it. If not, information if folks have questions, if it's constituent needs or election based.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really think right now on the spot of anything we haven't touched upon. I feel like it's been forever, but we see each other all the time.
Mhm.
It's been a while since the cameras have been on. But, if people want to get in touch with me regarding legislative stuff, you can definitely email me at the State House. It's Alyson, ALYSON.Sullivan @mahouse.gov. And if it's more campaign policy issues, policy issues you can email the State House as well, but more political questions, campaign questions, you can email me at AlysonSullivan4, and the number 4, at gmail.com, or even on my social media, Facebook, Instagram. I'm trying to work on Twitter. I'm not really Twitter savvy. My aide's kind of, she actually gives me a hard time about how my Twitter is not up to par, because apparently the youngins use Twitter.
Yeah,
I thought Instagram was the popular one.
Instagram is, but you also got to understand algorithms
Yeah.
and what time of day you should put something out and how
It never works for me. I just post. Sometimes I post several times a day. Sometimes, it's every couple of days, but
Same here. Well, thank you again. Good seeing you.
thank you.
Continued success and congratulations
Thank
on
you.
the nuptials.
Before we do end, I do want to give a little plug.
Please.
Yes, to Martin's in Abington,
Okay.
Martin's Restaurant. They do a veterans breakfast every first Wednesday in the month, and they do it throughout the whole entire day. And they said their first veteran comes in, I think, at 4 a.m. when they open up. We were just there this past Wednesday with Adam, our amazing veteran service officer. Oh my gosh, he's amazing, right? I can't say enough about him. He genuinely cares from the heart. We presented Skinny, one of our Abington's oldest veterans. He's 101, turning 102 in January, with a shadow box. So he's actually a master carpenter. He has a whole workshop. I was there earlier before this taping, and he has this whole workshop. He still does wood projects.
Awesome.
At 101 years old. I mean, I hope I'm moving by 101, right? So him and his brother, I mean, they go to Martin's every week, but the first Wednesday in the month, Martin's takes care of our veterans throughout the communities, and I can't thank them enough for what they do.
I want to say, I'll check my crew, but I think that Skinny's brother might have been was he not the original Green Wave football team coach?
He might have been the original. I know he was a football coach.
Yep.
He's actually he's a hot ticket.
One of the first.
I was with him too, Walter. He's a great man. He's turning 100 this year.
Awesome.
I know. So between the both of them right now, there's 200 years.
Great.
And it's amazing. It's amazing that the two of them still get together every single week. They enjoy each other's company, and you can see the personalities. I was able to do a podcast with them, and I'm sitting in between them, and I'm just chuckling because they remind me so much of my grandfather, right? The same kind of generation, same era.
Yep.
And just the things that were coming out of their mouths, I was like, you know what? You live to 99 years old, 100 years old. I think you have every right to say some of the things you say.
Indeed.
But, so this past Wednesday we went to Martin's, and Adam and I presented Skinny with a shadow box that was made by South Shore Boat Tech, the kids over there, the students over there.
Very nice.
And the flag was flown over the State House. So we were able to do that and put a flag right in it for him. So cherry wood, not his favorite wood, but he's okay with the cherry. It's a beautiful wood.
You had to work with.
Yeah. So he's great. But him and his brother are awesome and fantastic. And I can't wait to celebrate his brother's 100th birthday in December.
Maybe we could talk about that in a couple of months. Maybe the build up to the big birthday.
Yes.
Well, continued success, and we look forward to our next conversation
Thank
with
you.
you. Thank you.
Pleasure doing this with you.
And we thank you for tuning into a program like this as we try to keep you informed and up to date as to some of the things that are going on in the district with your state representative, Alyson Sullivan. Stay tuned for the next conversation and have a great day.